What is? I told you I was going to turn into one, Sanaz. Mark Cordone, Golden Light Live with Dr. Sanaz. She's already laughing her ass off at me. Dr. Sanaz, psychologist, Dr. Sanaz, trauma-informed yoga teacher, Dr. Sanaz, social justice advocate, and we're going to be talking about some cool shit today. We're going to be talking about some cool shit. We're going to be talking about trauma, but we're also going to be talking about healing through yoga, through social justice. We're going to be telling some stories. But first of all, it's Golden Mike 114 Sanaz. You know why there's been 114 episodes?
Because you can't be canceled.
Get out of here! That's my line! What? Take two!
My homework.
Take two! You know what? I can't be... You got me all flustered now! I can't be canceled. That's right. Okay. That's next awesome. One-liner. I'm flustered.
That's too funny.
You want to do the intro for me? For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Mike. Let's get through that so we can get to your story. It is going to be a good story today. And for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Mark Cordone. I'm Chief Disruptive Officer of the Joy Revolution. I'm the founder of Make Money Coaching. And more importantly, I'm a... you didn't know that one. I'm a positive psychologist, which means this. It's just two things that I focus on. How happy are you feeling today? And number two, how much are you living your life with meaning and purpose? So Sanaz, how happy are you today? And how much are you living your life with meaning and purpose?
Wow. I am, is there a scale? I am incredibly happy.
We can give it a Likert scale. You're a professor. I mean, you're a PhD, so 1 to 10.
On 1 to 10, I would say I'm a 9.
Good.
And yeah, definitely living my life with purpose for sure.
Right on. Has it always been those numbers for you, or has it fluctuated?
God, no. It's definitely fluctuated. Right now, I'm in a really good place. That's for sure. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Now, for those of you watching, I see now I'm so self-conscious because Sanaz has seen all this stuff. For those of you watching who are happy and living in a good place, living with purpose, Sanaz, I want you to put up your LA heart. Like we're both in LA. Beat that heart. Beat that heart. Give the Rams some power. I want you to hit the heart button, people, and let us know that you're living your life fully, flourishing. You're out there. You're happy. You're in purpose. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people think that positive psychology. Oh my God, I feel like you're going to complete my lines here.
No,
a lot
I'm
of
not.
Okay, a lot of people think that, a lot of people think that positive psychology is about like happiness all the time. It's all shits and giggles. Taco Tuesday every day. Rainbows and Skittles coming from the sky. Pegasus. We're riding Pegasus. We're always happy. No, that's not what positive psychology is about at all. It's about the ups, the downs, the all-arounds of life, the ecstasy, the trauma, and how we effectively navigate through those to live a fulfilled life. That's what positive psychology is about. So you can be watching Sanaz and I today and say, yo, Cordone, I was happy last week, but right now, for some reason, I'm off. Something is fucking off, dude. I don't know what's up. That's fine. That's part of your journey. Or you can be saying to Sanaz and I, yo, I've been like in purpose for 30 years. I've been deeply in love and in purpose with a relationship or in a job that I've been so happy and fulfilled with, but like something is off. It's changing. I'm falling out of it. That is cool too. Your heart beats just like Sanaz and mine. Give us a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up button and let us know that you're living life. This is part of your journey. This is part of the story that you tell. Storytelling. We'll segue later on, Sanaz.
Yeah.
And here's the final thing. Sanaz, you're a psychologist. I don't know if you believe in positive psychology or not, or you think that we're a bunch of snake oil salespeople. But like, one of the big things in positive psychology is this. Whether you're a 1 or you're a 10 in happiness, whether you're 1 or 10 in meaning, if you know that today is going to be even better than yesterday, whatever yesterday was, you're just going to make today better than yesterday. That's called optimism. And that optimism has been correlated with success and fulfillment in life and a whole bunch of other things. Sanaz, the doctor's she's doing this with her head. It means that it's true. It's true if she does that. She said it's right. But if you are feeling that, that's called optimism. And optimism goes a long way through the ecstasy and the trauma. Mm-hmm. If you're optimistic, like Sanaz and I are, I want you to give me a big wow face. I've been waiting for Sanaz to give me a wow face. What does that look like, Sanaz? Come on, let's see it. Are you not going to do the wow face after you've seen this show?
No, what's the wow face?
Yeah, so the wow face emoji. The emoji and how our way of the wow emoji. Oh, she did it. You're awesome.
That one. Yeah.
You're awesome. Now the thing is, when I first moved to LA, Sanaz was walking down the street, and we know each other through some pretty fantastic people, and she recognized me from my partner's Instagram. I didn't know what was going on. She scared the crap out of me in the middle of the road. So it is good to finally have a discussion with you and get to know more about you. And by the way, Sanaz, a lot of people are giving you the wow face and the love right now. Oh, so I just wanted you to know that. Let's recognize a couple of people. Nilo!
That's my little sister.
She's trying. She's trying to be optimistic right now. That's all you need to be doing.
She has a tough job.
Are you working right now, Nilo? Hopefully this will make the job a little bit better. Is it Nilu?
Nilu.
Yeah, Nilu. Hopefully this will make your day a little bit better to watch your sister rock and roll up.
She probably can't watch it all, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Keep commenting. Let us know that you're here. Now, let's just start here.
Okay.
Sanaz, what's your story?
Okay.
You're like...
That's it. Okay, I don't even know where to begin. Okay, so I am a psychologist. I was working at a prison after I graduated. Well, after I graduated, I first worked at a community college, and then I worked at a prison. And I was hoping to just complete my licensing hours, and I was planning on taking the path of like getting my hours done, completing my licensing exam, and starting a private practice. That was kind of what I was looking for. When I started working at the prison in Sacramento, it's a maximum security all-male prison. I decided that, okay, fine, I'll probably want to stay there for like 5 or 6 years because I really liked the job. I just loved working with the inmates. And it was a very, very fulfilling position, but it was very stressful as well. While I was working there, it was probably about 8 months in, I was attacked on the yard by an inmate. So he basically ran up to me and just beat me up. He wasn't a patient of mine, so I didn't know him. So it was pretty random. I mean, there may be a little bit more to the story, but I'm not going to go into it. But I feel like there could have been some reasons behind it, but in the end, it was a random attack, and that literally threw me off my tracks. Threw me off my whatever goals I had. I remember being in the hospital and thinking I'm gonna go back to work. It was a Friday. And I remember telling my supervisor and my friends who were at the hospital with me, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go back to work on Monday. And they were like, no, you're not. You need to take some time off and let this sink in.
Yeah.
So basically, the inmate who attacked me, he basically punched me in my face and head. So I had a scar to my eyebrow. Basically, I needed stitches in my eyebrow, and then some bumps and bruises on my head and face and stuff. So it wasn't that bad, but I mean, it was more just crazy traumatic.
Yeah.
So long story short, I was in Sacramento healing, trying to figure out what I want to do. As more time went by, I realized that, okay, maybe I'm not quite ready to go back to work, because the more I would think about going back to work, that's when my anxiety would kick in. I think for the first few months, I was pretty, I don't know if I was still in a state of shock or what, but it hadn't hit me yet. And then once I decided, okay, I'm going to go back to work, then I started having symptoms of like just various symptoms from like hypervigilance and anxiety and nightmares, and I was just paranoid in general. So that's when I realized I'm going to go back to LA, because I'm from LA. Well, I'm not really, but somewhat. I've been living in LA for a while. I came
None
back
of us
to
are
LA.
really from LA, baby.
I'm not. I'm from Dubai, but you know.
Right on.
And then so I decided to come back to LA, and I started therapy. And when I started therapy, it was incredibly helpful. It was I started feeling like, okay, I'm processing what's happening to me. And obviously, I'm a huge advocate for therapy. You know, I'm a psychologist myself. So I felt like it was, you know, I finally got the approval from my insurance to go. So I started going. And it was helpful, but it was very, very cerebral. I was just intellectualizing my symptoms, the biology. We were talking about it. We were doing a lot of CBT, so like cognitive behavioral therapy, and we're like trying to process through my thoughts and like shift my thought processes. And all of that is incredibly helpful. However, I felt like something was missing. And I couldn't put it into words, but I just remember feeling like something was missing. And then I remembered that when I was going through my divorce back in 2013, I started Kundalini yoga. I started Kundalini. It was my introduction to yoga. I had never done any type of yoga before. And I decided to start Kundalini yoga. And I don't know if you know about Kundalini yoga. It's a pretty, it's called the yoga of, I think it's like yoga of awakening. I don't know what it's called exactly. But basically it's a mixture of mantra, so like chanting, and then pranayama, so a lot of serious, intense breath work. Breathing. And then, you know, physical movement. And
okay,
and also,
so this was just, I'm just putting the timeline
I could just talk
here.
forever. Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. It make my job the easiest job ever. But so you had taken yoga during your divorce, and then the event in the prison yard happened.
Yes. The divorce was almost like 2 years prior. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So when I was in Sacramento working at the prison, I didn't have much of a yoga practice, because I was only doing Kundalini yoga when I was in LA. And when I went to Sacramento, I found a studio. Basically, I wasn't too into it. I was so focused on work that I let it consume me. And self-care was like out of the picture when I was working at the prison. It didn't even exist. I was consumed by going to work. Sometimes I would go into work on the weekends. It was intense. So yeah, I had remembered how healing Kundalini yoga was for me during my divorce. So I decided, okay, now that I'm back in LA, I have the studio that I used to go to. I'm going to get back into it. So not only did I get back into Kundalini yoga, but I just decided to do a yoga teacher training. And prior to the yoga teacher training, I also did a trauma-informed yoga training, which is like a 3-day weekend training. And that anybody can do. You don't have to be a yoga teacher to do the trauma-informed yoga training. So I decided, in addition to my therapy, I'm just going to immerse myself in the world of yoga. And so since there was a trauma certification, I did that. And then I also did the 200-hour yoga teacher training.
So you're doing them in tandem. You were doing
I was
yoga and you were also in therapy.
Yes.
It's like
Actually,
best
yeah.
of East Coast, West Coast. It's like
Yeah,
bringing
totally.
the two sides together.
Yeah, exactly. East meets West.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I started feeling like I mean, it's healing is a very like, it's always fluctuating, and there's always going to be days, I think, where I have like bad days, or like, my symptoms kick in or whatever. Maybe not always, but I mean, they're still around. But I feel like the yoga helped me feel more in control of my body. And granted, prior to yoga, I thought, not that I thought, the therapy was also helping me feel more in control.
Yeah.
It really was, because I was like, okay, I understand what's happening. And when my symptoms would kick in, I was like, okay, I know what's happening in my brain, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But the
Totally
yoga,
heady. Totally heady.
yeah, I used to be. I'm trying to move away from that, because being too heady is not okay, at least for me.
Is that what you feel like you were too heady about it?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
And that's why I felt like I need something more. Yeah, so I was very much heady, and then getting into the yoga allowed me to connect with my body.
Okay.
Meditation is like, I don't know, like that in and of itself is, for me, would have been sufficient. I just, really like the physical practice too. But meditation, and just for me sitting down, not necessarily sitting even, but like just sitting down or laying down and like connecting to the breath, noticing your heart rate, noticing sensations, and just noticing your body in the physical space that you're in. I was never like that before. I was never one to connect that much with myself, and allowing myself the space and time to connect within really felt like it was the bridge. It was the bridge connecting my heart to my mind and to my spirit. Like literally, it was all three, from my external world to my physical body to like my inner self. I felt like they were all like weaving in together again, and finding their way alongside one another. Before, I was very disconnected.
Now, before the event in the prison yard, did you feel like, in comparison to how you feel now, did you feel fractured or disconnected already, or was it that event that caused really a fracturing of the head, the heart, the gut, the spirit?
No, that's an interesting question. I feel like I didn't feel it. I may have been, but I didn't feel it because I was so disconnected. So how was I to know, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the trauma opens you up in a way to see the disconnection, and then work your way into, bringing some unity to it all. So I feel like I probably was. I also, because of prior to that, like my divorce, and I have experienced some other traumas in the past, there was definitely a disconnection. But if you were to ask me back then, I would have said no. I would have said no. I'm so in sync with my, inner self and my intuition. And like if like ask my old friends, like they would say that's how I would portray myself, at least, because I thought I was, but no, I certainly wasn't.
We got Chris saying, "Oh my God, yes, trauma opening you up, so painful and so true."
Yeah.
Are you feeling that?
Yeah, no, totally. It opened me up to, and I know not everybody may be able to relate to this, because this is just my personal experience. I truly feel like it was a blessing in disguise. a horrible one, because I can say that. I'm not saying that for, all traumas at all. But for me, I feel like it was even my divorce, because that was in a way very emotionally traumatic. Um, it was definitely a painful experience that opens you up to a whole new world. And it can be a beautiful outcome, I think, if you
Yeah.
seek the support that you need. That's a
Well, you
huge
know what?
part of it.
You took the question right out of my mouth.
Sorry.
I had it down here because I was going to ask you if, in retrospect, that was the worst day of your life, and
Oh,
you're
okay.
you're kind of saying that whether or not it was, there was a blessing there,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, um,
Um,
I, I wanted to ask you this. You do a lot of trauma informed work. Um, Psychologist, you know your shit, right? It seems with a lot of people who go through trauma, some people grow from it, become better from it.
right.
I believe it's called not I believe it's called post traumatic growth,
Right.
right? Um, is there a way to have the benefits of the post traumatic growth,
Mm-hmm.
or the benefits that you've had after your prison yard experience, without having to have experienced the prison yard?
Yeah.
Is there a way to bypass that?
Right.
Or do we have to experience the trauma?
I mean, I think so.
Okay.
Because, I mean, okay. So I would say yes, likely, but you will never know like how deep one can grow, like the depth of
Yeah.
someone's
Yeah.
growth in comparison. But I feel like ultimately what the trauma does is it allows you to be comfortable, or not be comfortable, try to find some peace while going through turbulence. Try to find a sense of agency while going through your discomfort. And so this actually ties into my work with Melanie. Melanie
Mm-hmm.
is my coach,
And my
and
partner.
your partner. And it's basically, we talk about this sometimes. It's like me trying to grow myself and expand and like move forward in my career. I need to put myself out there, but I have a lot of self-doubt. Like my inner critic is like crazy
Yeah.
loud, and I could go on and on about that. But Melanie's been helping me sit with the discomfort, notice the different sensations that come up, and re shift my perspective on what those feelings and sensations mean to me, because we're programmed to believe that when your heart is racing and you feel nauseous, all of a sudden this is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like it's bad. Oh my god, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm going to like, and then you sit with this like negative state. But if
Yeah.
I try to like notice what's happening and think, okay, this is happening to me because this is a new experience. I've never experienced it before. My body's trying to like process this, and this is a sign, and this is what Melanie has said, like just see that as a sign of growth, that you're stepping into, or you're moving past that, you're taking that leap, of faith, and that's why your body's having this reaction, and that's totally cool. So shifting that perspective and being comfortable with whatever discomfort's coming up, then you
Discomfort.
allow yourself to move forward. So I feel like when it comes to trauma work and finding a way to like move towards healing, it's the same thing in the sense that you're, with regards to PTSD symptoms, or just not, I don't want to say just PTSD because I'm trying not to use that label, but just generally symptoms that pop up for you when you are triggered. Um, just shifting your perspective and staying with it, understanding your body, being kind to your mind and your body when you have those symptoms, and not being
Mm-hmm.
so hard on yourself. So kind of sitting with those emotions and sensations, um, and breathing through it. So I feel
Yeah.
like yes, we can, to answer your question.
Yeah.
I feel like it's possible. We just have to. It's it's having the mindset of growth, a growth mindset, that you want to grow and you want to expand your horizons, you want to expand your limits, and move beyond whatever boundaries you currently have set in place. So
I think
I think
that's
that's the work
beautifully.
that you do, right? Like being a coach.
Sometimes I'll use that word. Yeah, growth mindset
No
is
work. I said it's the work. I meant it's the work that you do, right? Like
it
being
is the
able
work that
to
I do.
grow, right? Yeah.
It is the work that I do. And I mean, from one, you're a psychologist, and so you know that positive psychology is psychology. It's just a
Right.
return to the old Maslowian humanism movement. But so much of the world has gone into trauma, especially during World War I and World War II, and what they called shell shock, that people
Yeah.
were coming back, and it was all hands on deck to treat the psychopathy, right?
Yeah.
And just get people to a place of uh, being regular again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I truly believe that trauma, ecstasy, whatever, we need to get out of the status quo and go to places even higher and push ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
And can we do that without trauma? That's a
Right.
question that I ask myself a lot, and I love talking to folks about. What I love about, and I completely agree with the growth mindset piece,
Yeah.
because someone coming in with the fixed mindset, one thing happened, whether it's traumatic or not, it's just if it's off of your plan of
Mm-hmm.
action, then suddenly your world comes crumbling down, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of people, I still get in a fixed mindset. I intellectualize something. I've got the perfect plan.
Yeah.
One variable goes wrong and it completely crumbles. The
Yeah.
growth mindset being the one of resilience. How can I take willpower? You know, it's just really cool, and it's like you're improving your way through life.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
after a while, it gets a little bit easier. You know,
Exactly.
and I do love this idea of discomfort that you're talking about, Sanaz, because I think so many of us go right to a fight or flight response at the first sign of something that's foreign to us,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is weird.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm out.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know, when that could be the impetus for you to grow profoundly from.
Yes.
It's just the fact that it's a foreign experience to you,
Yeah.
and it turns into fight or flight. And
Yeah.
it seems like one of the ways that we can turn off the fight or flight when we don't need to be in fight or flight is by noticing, like
Yeah.
you were talking about.
Yeah.
And whatever way you want to do that, yoga,
Yeah.
it sounds like therapy helped you with noticing and processing.
Yeah.
I love that idea of noticing. We got a couple people in here. They're picking up what you're throwing down, homie. Chris is absolutely relating trauma, worst and best thing
Yes.
that ever happened to Chris too. I feel you. I
Yeah.
feel you, she said.
Totally.
We got Melanie Klein. Never heard of her before. Sanaz has such an incredible story, and she speaks from the heart so beautifully. Thank you for all you
Thank
are
you,
and
Melanie.
all you do. I don't see any lightning bolts there. No lightning bolts. I'm taking you off the screen
Oh,
so we see the lightning bolts. We want the lightning bolts.
That's
So,
hilarious.
so let me ask you this. I want to go back a little bit further in your story.
Okay.
You had the experience in the prison yard,
Yeah.
and it's almost like you normalize things, right? Like
I know.
back to work again. And I don't want to diagnose anything, but it's very similar
go ahead.
to stories where planes are crashing and full on trauma is happening to people, and like they go to the overhead bin and start getting their luggage before just getting the fuck out of the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like they normalize and they just go back to a normal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
When was it that you were like, something is really off? Or had you gone for a long period of time just being like, yeah, it's all good, just a couple stitches?
Yeah.
It could be worse.
I literally said those exact words. It's just a couple of stitches, and yes, it could have been worse. I used to think, thank God he didn't have a knife on him, or thank God he didn't kill me. Why did he just punch me? Like, just those were my thoughts. It sunk in when I decided that I want to go back to work. And that was almost 3 months after I got over the fact that, okay, fine, I'm not going to go back to work the following Monday, because then I realized, okay, no, I need to like really take some time off. It was like 3 months in, and that when I decided that I want to go back to work, and I was trying to pick a date. I told my supervisor, and she was like, come whenever you're ready. So I was like looking through the calendar, and I could go back whenever. So I was like, okay, let me pick a date. And then all of a sudden I started feeling nauseous. And
you never felt that during the 3 months?
I never felt nauseous. First of all, generally I didn't only during my divorce, maybe for the first year, I felt anxious to the point where sometimes I felt nauseous, but it stopped. It had gone. So this was the first time. It was like maybe 3 months in that I started feeling nauseous. And that's when I was like, wait, this is not okay. And at first I was like trying to think, did I eat something bad? Like I was in such denial that I couldn't, like, yeah.
Maybe you were pregnant.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I could be pregnant. So I was like basically trying to find other excuses. Like, no, this is not anxiety. But then I was like, okay, no, this is anxiety. And that's when I put in the request. Always. That's when I put in the request to my medical doctor that, it's time for me to go to therapy.
Had you been to therapy before?
Yes, I had been to therapy for 2 straight years going through my divorce.
Okay, so you knew what was going up. You knew what was on.
Yeah, for sure. And I loved my therapist, and yeah. I actually had a session with my therapist via Skype because she was in LA. So, but I wasn't ready. Like I don't know why I didn't want to continue with her. I didn't call her back. It was just weird. I don't know.
So you went to a different therapist?
Well, yeah, because of insurance stuff, they wanted me to go to a specific person.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to a different therapist.
Okay, so
that's when it hit me. Yeah,
3-month period.
Yeah, 3 months.
Like, there's like this 3-month period of like living in a cloud, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to say the reality, but it's almost the anticipation of going back to a place that I'm going to use the word. I know a lot of people don't use it, but I'll use it. But it seems like it could have been triggering to go back to that.
Very much so.
Yeah. Now, okay. So I just wanted to fast forward now. Can you go to that place today, or do you still have trauma, or do you still have anxiety around it?
Yeah. See, as soon as you asked me that, I was like, I need to take a deep breath. So, I mean,
notice, mama.
Exactly.
Notice.
Exactly. No, trust me. I think about that a lot because I absolutely loved working with inmates. Like I could talk to you about that for hours. But I know that it's not a safe place for me to be because it will be like constantly I'll be too hyper vigilant, and even though, like, let's say I get triggered, which I feel like I would get triggered pretty quick, and I'll be able to keep myself in a calm state, but it's too much work for me. It's like, why would I put myself through that where I'm constantly having to like take deep breaths, keep myself calm, like I would be in a constant state of like trying to stay in this like Zen place. At least now, maybe in like, I don't know how many years, but right now I feel like going back would not be, I wouldn't be in the right state of mind.
Yeah. So you love working with prison mates. Do you, or the incarcerated, do you ever have days where you say to yourself, like, why because you love it. I can hear it. You love working with that population. Do you ever say to yourself, like, dude, why the fuck did you do that to me? Like, why did you randomly hit me like that? Or did you ever think that? Or do you still think that? Or ever think that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think about the why because I have some what's the word, hypotheses that I feel like could answer my why. I feel like there are some I feel like it could have been maybe there was a reason behind it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go into the details.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I know the why is it will drive me crazy thinking about it because it makes
Gotcha.
me angry. So, and then I think past that and I think, okay, fine. What this was it was, and I know not everybody likes to use this depending on the circumstances, but I feel like it was meant to happen this way to get me out of there in order for me to do the work that I'm going to be doing over this next year or two.
Okay.
I feel like I got a dose of working with inmates and working with trauma because that's what I wanted is go work with people who've experienced like complex trauma from like childhood. And I got a dose of it and it was a very dark place to work. And if anybody who's out there who's working in a prison and as a psychologist or any working in a prison in general, it's a traumatic place to work. And I realized that just to work, not because of what happened to me, just to work there, it's traumatic, I feel like, because now that I've studied more of trauma after the fact, and I've gotten into my trauma yoga work, it's you're in a constant state of hypervigilance, and you're constantly like, at least especially being a woman working in an all-male prison.
Yep.
The sexual harassment you see and you hear is endless.
Yep.
That's another conversation in and of itself. The verbal abuse you receive from the men is pretty intense. But you just gotta like slide it off. You just gotta pretend you don't hear it when you're walking by. The cat calling, like you name it. Like it's very, very emotionally challenging. So I don't know where I was going with this. Well, why did I work there? Right. So I got that. So I had that experience, and in addition to the trauma that I had physically, I'm now a lot more aware of like how traumatic it was working there, and so it just.
And, you're bringing up something that's very interesting. You're bringing out the nuances in trauma, because I think one of the things that people will think about is that trauma is, okay, it's a sudden thing. You're hit over the head. Your life changes instantly, right? That kind of trauma. And you wake up and your leg is gone. Everything's changed forever. But then there's another kind of trauma that's sort of this low-grade dose of trauma that it's just every day. It's a droning type of thing that just kind of eats away at you, I know even in the social justice community, they'll call it microaggressions. Right? Where it's not totally that trauma that you're getting hit over the head with something, but you're in a room and the pictures on the wall don't look like you. They're not the same gender as you. And suddenly that type of low grade trauma results in someone erupting randomly one day, and they don't know why. You're the trauma person. Is that a distinction between the different kinds of traumas that can happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that also, like, it can go back to just attachment and just attachment theory in general when it comes to like children being raised with parents, for example, who are neglectful, or that basically you're raised in an environment where you have to take care of yourself, or maybe you're having to take care of your sibling, just situations that aren't really normal, like where children are not getting their needs met. And if you're not getting your needs met, your inner landscaping is like, wait a second, something's off. Why am I not getting that affection from my mother? Why am I not being fed on time? Why am I not, whatever the case may be. And so your inner landscaping gets a little thrown off. But then you're constantly in that state. So you learn to interact with the world from a completely different mindset. And you're interacting with the world from a place of shame and fear, or like, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy because of, the way I'm being raised. So you're interacting with the world from that place. And so, it's like micro trauma. I don't know. There's a word.
Micro traumas. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this for a second, because you're talking about the emergence of the inner critic.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think when it comes to healing, that's a big thing, is being able
Yeah.
to quiet that inner critic.
Yes.
Um,
Very much so.
because there could be blame, there could be shame,
Hmm.
in that is a result of the trauma. What are some ways that we can actually quiet your inner critic and sort of move through uh, the discomfort to live with purpose?
I'm like, that's a conversation. Like, I have this conversation with Melanie all the time.
I'm laughing because that's what you wanted me to say on the show notes. I thought you were picking it up too. That, I mean, that's like, but I think it's the perfect time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about healing in the critic.
Yeah. Exactly. And just, I guess.
And by the way, Nilu, thanks for joining us. She has to run.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I have to run. Love this and
Hi,
love
Nilu.
you.
Love you.
Oh, it's amazing. Amazing. But yeah, let's talk about this inner critic.
The inner critic. Yeah. So, what was your question? Healing the inner critic.
Yeah. Or quieting it.
Quieting the
Yeah.
inner critic. I feel like for me, I'm very much doing that as we speak.
Mhm.
I've been doing it. I've been working on it a lot more ever since I started working with Melanie,
Yeah.
because she's allowing me to like notice it right away. She's created a space for me to notice it. Um, and I would just say that healing the inner critic, or quieting the inner critic, is more about trying to understand where she's coming from. For me, it's a she. Trying to understand where she's coming from, and being kind to her. Because whenever she would pop up, I would just be like, I'm not gonna curse, but just I would just get very angry, and like, I would feed into her whatever she's saying, and basically continue to put myself down. I would allow her to take over. I would
Yeah.
allow her to, like, if she would say some small little thing, I'll be like, yeah, whatever, like, it's true. I am a failure. I am, not smart enough. I am whatever, anything else. So
Yeah,
now
and
it's
you know
like,
what I think is interesting is that um, it's almost like with this voice, you've used psychological distancing, right? Because you're like, she's a she.
yeah,
Like you're using
we have
psychological.
names. Yeah.
Oh, you've named your inner critic.
Oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this. Yes, my inner critic's name is Ursula.
Ursula.
Yeah.
Ursula, I want you to meet Dubs. Dubs is the little man on the corner of
Oh,
the screen. That's what he looks like.
where? What
My
corner of the
logo.
screen?
My logo is my inner critic.
Oh, your logo is your inner critic. Oh, nice.
Yeah, Ursula, meet Dubs. Now shut the fuck up.
Oh my god, I love it.
I think one of the things
distancing, for sure.
yeah, and even before the distancing, one of the things I never even thought about is that the inner critic can sometimes emerge because of the trauma.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's got to protect you in the first place, right?
Yes. Yes.
So but then that inner critic will try to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And what we interpret is like, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough for this. But it's trying to get you not punched again.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm hearing.
No,
Okay.
totally. That's exactly it. Because I'll give you an example. Like, I was just a random time I was triggered. It was in a parking lot. I get one of my triggers is hearing the sound of footsteps, running footsteps. That's a trigger of mine. And I was in a parking lot, and it was a quiet, these big parking lots here in LA, and that sound echoes. So I heard the running footsteps, but it was like loud and echoing. Anyway, so I hear it, and as soon as I hear it, this is before my yoga, I got into, my heart started racing, and then I knew what was happening. I knew exactly what was happening. I was like, fuck, like, it's happening. Like, I heard the footsteps. I turned around to make sure. It was like a little girl who was running. And so once I realized I'm not in danger, I tried, instead of trying to calm myself down and doing it the way I would do it now, I was like, I got mad at myself. I was like, Sanaz, you're still feeling this way? It's been over a year. Why? I literally said, Sanaz, why are you still
Yep.
Why can't you control your heart? And then I started crying, and then I started crying because I felt sorry for myself. And not to say that this is not going to happen again. Maybe it will, but I'm just saying, like, this is how how I would feed into it, by being hard on myself. Because once I saw that my heart was racing, I got mad at myself, and then I started crying because I felt sorry for myself. And then I was like, oh my God, like, when is this going to end? I'm never going to, like, when am I going to be able to go out and not worry about this? How am I going to, and then I think about, okay, how am I going to avoid hearing the sound of people running? Like, you know,
it's totally disempowering.
Yeah. And so some people will stay in that mindset and, like, keep themselves locked up in the house and not go out. And, some people need to do that in order to find comfort and safety in their own experiences. And then once they're ready, they can go out. And so it's just a matter of finding that balance of how much am I going to allow this to take over my everyday life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's an awesome example of sort of the inner critic completely taking control of everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I think psychological distancing was one of the first things, right?
Yeah. I wanted to say one more thing. One more thing.
Look at you getting into this. Look at you getting into this.
It's so interesting, and I always tell people this because I am a psychologist. That was another thing that I was incredibly hard on myself for, because I tell myself, Sanaz, you're a therapist. You should know better. You should know better. No, you shouldn't even be experiencing PTSD. Literally, I remember telling my therapist that the first time I went for the second round of therapy with the PTSD stuff. Yeah, I told her, I'm like, why am I feeling this way? I should know better. Like, who do I think I am to think that, oh, just because I'm a psychologist, it means I can't experience, like, PTSD? That's so ridiculous. Now, in hindsight. But in that moment, that was my inner critic. Oh, Sana, I was like, you're not a good enough psychologist. That's why this is happening to you.
Yeah, well, the way that I refer to it, the metaphor I use is it's like reading about sex and then actually having it. It's a little bit different. You may be able to read and memorize everything, but until you have it, you've never had it,
Yeah.
So there is a distinction between the two. And I do want to get back to this because it's fascinating. In quieting that critic, you first worked with Melanie to create psychological distancing and say, you know what? I am not this voice. It's Ursula speaking right now.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with Ursula now that Ursula's there? Like, because I need to talk to Dubs today because Dubs been getting on my fucking nerves lately. Like, what can I do to quiet Dubs?
Ursula and Dubs need to hang out, maybe.
They need to hang out far the fuck away from here.
What did I do with her? How did I basically creating that distance was huge because it helps you separate yourself from her. And then creating that distance allows me to, it's really crazy how the mind works, but like I was like, okay, that's Ursula. What does Sanaz think? And what is Sanaz's truth? Is she a failure? Is she stupid? Whatever else, like whatever else Ursula is like telling me, like I get to like put her aside, ask myself these questions. And Melanie, one of the questions Melanie would ask me is like, is this true? Is there evidence? What is the evidence to prove whatever Ursula is saying, for example?
Using empirical data on the doctor.
Always. So I just, framing things in that way really helps you, through also meditation and mindfulness practices, you allow yourself to distance yourself from anybody and anything else, and then come back to you and find your authentic voice and allow that voice to kind of maybe sometimes have conversations with Ursula and be like, no, I respect you, I hear you, but I think you're wrong and here's why. And then you try to prove yourself to Ursula by being like, no, this is Sanaz.
Yeah, and well, one of the things that to just sort of give my bent on that is in working with clients or when I'm working with Dubs. Dubs has got a big old yapper. I've done some work to realize that Dubs showed up when I was 6 years old to protect me from something. And Dubs still speaks to me like I'm a 6-year-old, right?
Yes. Yes.
So when Dubs speaks up and says certain things, I can say, well, I've got a little bit more agency, and you're still a 6-year-old Dubs, so you're technically the child.
Right.
And you know what? The child doesn't drive the car, motherfucker. And that's when Protective Services takes Dubs away from me. But like, the thing is that our inner critics show up during a formative time of our existence, usually when we're children.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it doesn't change. It still speaks to us like we're a kid.
Yeah.
And so when we actually speak to we make psychological distance with our inner critic, we can also realize that our critic was just there to help us when we were 4 or 6 or 20. And we can say, okay, I understand that you're trying to say something right now, but say it differently. Don't speak to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Okay, you're worried about me moving to LA because of I might be distance from my family. That's something more logical that I can process. Don't call me stupid, because I'm not stupid. So I don't know if
yeah, no, totally, that's so true, because when I have conversations with Ursula, I don't know, it sounds so weird.
I love
you get it. You get it.
I love anyone who's tuning in right now, like two psychologists talking about their imaginary friends.
Oh my God, that's too funny. But yeah, you're totally right. When I do talk to her, when I hear her, it is just little word. It's degrading. She just uses, like, her vocabulary is very, like, minimal. Oh, you're stupid. Like, just, you're stupid. You don't know, like, don't do this. Like, you can't do this. Like, oh, you're not good enough. Like, and it makes me realize, like, what you just said. When I do feel like she's talking to me like I'm a child, and sometimes I would believe her, and so I would think, yes, I'm still a child. I'm 36 years old, but I act like, whatever, like I'm immature or whatever the case may be. I would believe the things that she would tell me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So let me ask you this, and this comes from my naivete about yoga, and admittedly so. From what I know about yoga, it's a major piece is integration of all parts.
Yes.
Integration and wholeness.
Yes.
Isn't Ursula and Dubs technically part of us? Yeah. So, like, does there still need to be an integration, or is it healthy to keep that distance at all times? Because I don't feel like that's an integration. I feel like that's almost a segmenting. When you go and take your inner critic and you kind of put a fence around it and say, oh, that's what this is, it doesn't feel fully integrated. And so, I mean, that's more of a curious question. Like, does yoga help integrate that? Or is that something like contrast, like the light and the dark, accepting of the shadow self and I don't know.
I feel like that's a cool question. I think it is an integration of that inner critic. However, I feel like the more we make peace with that inner critic, she's no longer going to be an inner critic.
I love that. I love it. I love that.
She's going to stop. She's going to hear me. She's going to take the time to see and see me, because I'm going to allow my true self to be seen, and I'm going to prove her wrong in a gentle way. And then she's going to be like, okay, you know what? She's right. Like, there's no need for me to be, like, throwing this shit at her anymore. So I'm just going to sit back and, enjoy the ride. And maybe she'll pop up at some other point, and that's fine. And I go back to yoga, so that's kind of how I would answer your question.
I absolutely love this. You know what? We're not going to get to all these points that we had, but I do want to bring up one thing that maybe it's an observation. If it's cool with you, I'd love to share the observation.
Of course.
One of the things that I've noticed about your relationship with yoga and your practice of yoga is that I think in your nascent stages, you used or you practiced yoga when you were in a place of trauma or distress.
Yes.
And now it looks like you're using yoga more proactively.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether you're in trauma or distress. It's just your practice now.
Yes.
It's a part of your life, and you've integrated it in that. So you'll still have an up or a down, but yoga will always be there. Is that true?
Yeah.
What my observation?
Yes, totally.
Okay.
It's true. I feel like I'm always going to be on this journey of healing. I think we all are.
Yeah.
And having a practice, and when I say yoga practice, I don't necessarily mean just asana. I don't necessarily mean just physical practice. I'm talking about also meditation and just mindfulness and self-inquiry, critical self-inquiry. That kind of also ties into yoga practices. So I feel like I'm always going to be practicing yoga in some form. And now, especially that I'm also slowly beginning to teach it more, it's integrated in my life on a newer level. And so that also helps me come back to the mat, helps me stay in a better state of mind. And yeah, it is definitely more integrated into my life. For sure.
Did you use yoga before you came on the show?
Oh yeah. Well, meditation wise, like last night I was like meditating and like holding my stones in my hand and like doing some like tarot cards and like
because of the show or because just that's part of you're holding
because of you. I was nervous. Yes, I was nervous.
Wait, what did the tarot card tell you?
It was interesting. It told me that it was about my solar plexus and like that I can speak that I'm a powerful being and not to be afraid to share my power. That's what it said.
You already knew that. You're a powerful fucking being. Yeah.
Thank you.
All I gotta say is, for this time around, you've said enough, Sanaz. We're done. You being nervous, my brown ass, like I call bullshit on that. You rocked it. You were awesome. A couple things. Melanie, for me, yoga is about raising consciousness, right? Totally. Sanaz pulled out all the stops to prep for the golden mic. I love it. Well, it definitely worked. And it sounds like Ursula.
I didn't get to talk about what I'm going to be doing. Every time went by.
Oh no, let's go. Yeah, we have to do that. You have not said enough. I did put that on hold. We need to talk about that now. Where the next steps are in the travels.
Okay, I talk too much. Okay, I'll keep it short.
No, you don't. That's fucking Ursula.
I know. Ursula. Sorry. Okay, but I know we're on the time limit. So, okay. My travels. Yeah. So basically, I did the yoga teacher training and all this stuff in order to start teaching yoga to women who've experienced trauma. That was kind of like what I wanted to do with the work, as a result of what happened to me. So, in a nutshell, basically, last summer that I'm going to take a year to a year and a half off of, my own, just pursuing my career in whatever shape or form that is going to entail. I am going to go out into the world and go to different refugee camps and offer trauma-informed yoga healing circles, basically, for women refugees. And then also I will be offering trauma-informed care trainings for staff. So the staff who are working at these NGOs, basically humanitarian aid crisis workers, and offering them training so they have a better understanding of how trauma impacts the body. We're going to talk about secondary trauma as well. And basically I've decided to dedicate a year of my life to service. And I'm doing this entirely on my own, so that's exciting because I'm going to be traveling alone and doing all of this alone.
This is awesome. I know we can follow your travels. It's gonna be like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego,
Yes,
but
exactly.
it's
Yes.
gonna be like where in the world is Dr. Yagmai.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna be able to follow you on
Yeah,
your Instagram.
on my Instagram. Yes.
Okay, so that's posted up right now, and we also have a website, The Alchemy of Trauma. Are we gonna be
Yeah.
able to follow you on that as well?
Yes. That
Okay.
on my website and my Instagram, I will basically be sharing stories and basically storytelling on my personal experiences and insights, but more importantly, the NGO staff and humanitarian aid workers and the refugees, just sharing their stories. So that's my goal. Is the reason I want to use why I want to use my Instagram as a platform is because I want to shed light on their stories, and particularly with the NGOs, I'm specifically working with grassroots level NGOs, so they have like minimal funding. So I want to kind of use my Instagram as a platform to kind of shine a light on what they're doing. Some of them don't even have websites, like they're really grassroots.
Yeah.
So I want to just share their stories and maybe for sometimes help them raise money or whatever the case may be.
That's a huge deal because the storytelling is the basis of how society functions, and sometimes when you don't tell people stories, they become invisible.
Yes,
And we didn't
exactly
even
why
get
I
to the
wanted to.
social justice aspect of
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
So yes, and why is Melanie Klein like your press agent right now?
What do you
Yes, and she
think?
has Circles of Hope in LA
Oh, LA,
until she
right?
leaves for Greece in March.
Yes, I'm going to Greece in March. I'm doing a Circle of Hope right now, and it's a donation-based class.
Okay.
90 minutes of talking, meditation, and yoga, basically.
Okay.
And
And how do we get in touch with you for the Circle of Hope? Is
it's
that on Alchemy of Trauma?
Alchemy of Trauma in services section or
Okay.
Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram, they're in the bio. It says get.
Okay. So we got everything. The rocks were true. The tarot was true. Your coach was true. The
Yeah.
breathing was true.
Yeah.
Ursula was false.
Ursula was
You
false.
kicked ass today. You said enough, except one thing. I want to have you back, by the way, if that's cool.
Sure. Yes, of
Okay,
course.
okay, because I
would
do
love
want to
to.
go into more of the social justice and I want to talk about prison. I want to talk about more stuff with you. But until the next time, a golden mic. Let's do a visualization of sorts. A golden mic coming down from your ceiling, and it's resting in front of you, Sanaz. The power of this golden mic is one in which it translates into every language all across the world. Sanaz, the world is listening when I flip this mic on. What do you have to say? So, Sanaz, your golden mic is live
Oh God.
now.
What I would say is this: that every day, and I think you said this in the beginning of your piece, every day is a new day. And so when it comes to healing, I feel like, whatever happened yesterday, the day before, if we can approach each day with new eyes, a new mindset, a clean slate, with no judgment of the previous day, I feel like that's a huge part of healing. And more importantly, I feel like it's so crucial that people seek the support that they need to reach out for help, because I would have not been able to do any of this without tons of support in my life. Um, look for therapists, yoga teachers, knowledgeable yoga teachers in trauma informed work, coaches. Like, just reach out and like know that you're not alone. Like, that's a huge thing. I feel like so many people stay in their little bubble because they're scared to reach out, or they think nobody else understands what they're going through. But it's so important that you reach out, because just in creating that human connection and sharing your struggles with another person truly is the first step in allowing yourself to heal.
Sanaz, I want you to take that golden mic, that heavy golden mic in front of you. I just want you to hold it in front of me for a second. I want you to drop that golden mic like it's hot, Sanaz! Drop that golden mic! You can't take that with you on your travels. Expensive. I absolutely have loved having you. I want to see you again. I hope to see you before you leave. I think I will. And I'm looking forward to just being your friend and connecting with you more in the future.
Same here. I'm Sanaz, thank you. To do this. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. So here's the question that I have for everybody. It's been episode 114. And for those of you who are feeling happy and living life to your full purpose, the question that Sanaz and I have for you is, how much are you ready to change the world for the better? I'm Mark Cordone. This is Sanaz. This has been the Golden Mic. Peace out.
Hey!